Well, hello. Welcome to my recording studio. So in case you aren't aware, most of the West Coast is kind of on fire right now. The area I'm in is pretty safe. In San Francisco, we're surrounded on three sides by water, but we still get a lot of the smoke and smog from the fires everywhere else. So everything's been kind of dark and dingy. There really hasn't been a ideal lighting condition for filming in several days now. Just everything is very dark and cloudy and gloomy. So with lighting conditions having not been ideal in the rest of the house for several days, I figure I take this time to do something I've wanted to do for quite some time, and that is try my hand at making my own audiobook and sort of bring you guys along and show you the process and my trial and error attempt as I fumble at something new. So like I said, here's my closet. Oh no. I've chose this time to try filming in my closet where I'm going to be making my audiobook because even when the sun is out and lighting conditions are more ideal for filming anyway, filming just in this tiny closet that's very dark, even when there is natural daylight, is going to be pretty bad anyway. Just the lighting's not going to be the greatest. So it's going to be not that great. You're going to have to get used to seeing me like this for a while. So Brains of the Operation is a story I've been working pretty consistently on since the April Camp NaNoWriMo, and I figure why not take this project I've been working on, like I said, consistently, and I've had a lot of time to sit with, and it is a project I've been working on and off since my senior year of high school. Why not take that and try my hand at an audiobook? I think my main inspiration for this is I've gotten back into listening to the actual Star Wars audiobooks. If you don't know, Brains of the Operation is a Star Wars fan fiction. And in the canon Star Wars audiobooks, there's lots of music, there's special effects, it's very dramatic. And I did complete my undergraduate in performance drama, but for obvious reasons, right now I can't go out and audition for plays or even film or TV. So I've been looking for a way to both continue with my writing but also try to involve some of my acting side, and trying to make an audiobook is just kind of a perfect combination of the two. Now, Brains of the Operation itself is over 60,000 words long, so it's like longer than your average novel, I think. So I'm not gonna try to record the whole thing in one go. I think for this recording, I'm just gonna try to get down some of the voices of the major characters. Oh my god, it's already getting warm in here. So I have my story pulled up on my iPad, and I'll start going through some of the major characters in Brains of the Operation. Now, one of the challenges of voicing all of the characters in this story is, in Star Wars canon, a lot of the sort of evil characters or the Imperial characters have British accents, and my British accent is somewhere below passable. So I acknowledge I'm trying my best, but I'm also not doing that very good of a job. Now, the main character, Petals, is an OC, so she's kind of one of the few characters I can truly put my own spin on in terms of what they're going to sound like. And Petals is kind of a hard balance to strike because she is Imperial, so she has that British accent. She's supposed to have that kind of stiffness to her, but her actual dialogue is very casual. So the main inspirations I think of for the voice is she's kind of a villain because she's part of the First Order. The First Order are the bad guys, duh. But she's also she's a lot less buttoned up compared to the other Imperials, so there kind of has to be also a looseness to her voice. The voice I ended up coming up with, I used kind of Azula as a baseline because Azula is just like the best villain, especially when it comes to female villains. And then also, if you've ever played the RPG Star Wars The Old Republic, the Imperial agent, the female voice for the Imperial agent, is a lot of flexibility in that voice. It like goes up very high, but it can also go down very low, and I feel like that's a quality that Pates really needed. So now we're getting to the reading part, and this is the really frustrating part for me, because especially when I'm first getting into the voice, I mess up a lot. We should send ambassadors to the First Order. And it's a lot of me just rereading the same line. We should send ambassadors to the First... over and over again. If I may share my personal opinion, General, military action alone will no longer suffice if the First Order is to survive. While we maintain military control over our territories, many of the planets we conquered already had ruling governments before we arrived. We should send ambassadors of the First Order to these planets as a sign of goodwill and to ensure their cooperation. Yeah, I got it! Finally! So now we get on to the canon characters. Now I know, I will never sound like Adam Driver. I will never sound like Gwendolyn Christie. I will never sound like Donald Gleason. And I think that's okay. In the actual Star Wars audiobooks, especially the ones I've read, most of them, the reader is male. So when they do like Princess Leia, they kind of just sound like this, like they almost use like a generic female voice. And I think I'll probably have to do something similar, particularly with the male characters. Just kind of have to do my best and try to find a balance between like imitating a male voice, but also not trying to sound too crazy. Which is tough because with General Hux you have the British accent again, and then Kylo Ren is just crazy. Alrighty, different day, new makeup. So even just recording the entire audiobook is going to be a multi-day, multi-week project. This is mostly because I really don't have the entire day to record for my audiobook. My sister uses my room, so right outside, for her classes in the morning, and then my dad, being on the older side, likes to go to bed pretty early, so I have to record during that sweet spot between when my sister's classes have ended and before my dad goes to sleep. This is also just a really small closet with a light beaming directly over me, so I get pretty warm in here pretty quickly. I recorded a sample of the audiobook I want to make of just the first chapter of The Brains of Operation as a proof of concept, and that took about 3 separate days of recording. And that, of course, doesn't take into account the editing, which I think for that chapter took about 2 days. It's gonna vary, though, because chapter 1 is one of the shorter chapters, and as the chapters go on, they can be longer or shorter, so it's gonna depend. I'm also not going to release the audiobook all at once. I sort of have different arcs within the story set out, and so I think I'll be releasing them kind of arc by arc. So I think that's like chapter 1 through chapter 10 is the first one, and then the next one is like chapter 11 through chapter 20 something. So that's how I'll be able to pace myself. Also, just so I can get sort of proof of my work out a little faster, and you're not watching this video about me making an audiobook and then not hearing about it for like months on end. In the past, I have thought about creating a Patreon related to my fanfiction work, or even just related to this audiobook I'm trying to create. But that draws several kind of weird lines in terms of like copyright infringement, not just because I use copyrighted music in the audiobook itself, although I have a non-copyright music option for people, because when I put copyrighted music in the audiobook, UMG claims the video, so I can't control how many ads are on there. And because I have YouTube Premium, so I don't see the ads, but I had a friend of mine who I wanted to show the audiobook sample with. She had to use the version with no music because the ads were just so overwhelming. I have heard of people creating a Patreon for sort of their fanfiction account persona, whatever, in order to make money off of their fanfiction writing. And then, of course, there's the more traditional route of sort of taking a fanfiction story, changing all the names, and publishing it as your own traditional work. I don't know if I'm going to do either. With the Patreon, like I said, you run into a lot of copyright issues. And then with turning your fanfiction into original work by just changing all the names but keeping the plot the same, I don't know if that works for my genre. I think it works very well in romance, where you can just change the names and it's basically an original story at that point, because it's not really connected or related in concept to the original work. But science fiction is different in the sense that there are these sort of creative concepts that, if not directly copyrighted, are at least very universally recognized within pop culture as belonging to a certain intellectual property or certain franchise. Like, I can't just change all the names of the characters and brains of the operation and be like, it's an original concept. Yes, they have lightsabers, but it's an original concept because the names are different. That's not how it works. But that's sort of my thoughts on sort of the money-making aspect of all of this. I am just creating my audiobook for fun and to distract myself from the world, and I hope it does the same for you, or at least maybe this video did. And I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time.